People that quit their job in a hilarious fashion. How did you do it? I used to work at a place that rhymes with Pizza Hut. And the managers there were real cheapskates. There was this nice old man that would come in every Sunday and order a triple extra cheese pizza, and while they charged him for the 3x cheese, they would forbid us from ever actually putting that much cheese on a pizza, because apparently cheese in the pizza selling world is akin to gold. So instead of 3x extra cheese, he would really be getting what the instructions would qualify as barely enough for a regular cheese pizza. On the day my 2 weeks notice ended, the old guy just happened to be my last order, so I went into the walk-in and grabbed an entire box of cheese, proceeded to dump the entire thing onto his pizza and tossed it into oven. It was stacked so high that it couldn't even fit into it, and half of it was scraped off. Anyways, the look on the old guy's face when he saw me do this made it all worth it. Imagine pure excitement. Needless to say, I didn't put the correct phone number down for future job references. I went all fucking out. I gave my boss a respectful letter of resignation and thanked him for the opportunity. Get wrecked. Straight savage. 1992. I was 19 and working at the most pissant radio station imaginable, AM Country Gold. The notoriously cheap, abusive and dishonest owner, a fella named Wes, had just screwed me out of a promised bonus. It was the latest in a long line of dishonest acts, and I had had enough. The rest of the sales team was afraid to stand up to Wes, and he screamed abuse at them constantly, except the lone woman, who he sexually harassed. They were all in their 30s and 40s, working the same garbage job I was, but desperately needed it. I did not. So I engaged in a very public shouting match with Wes in the lobby, saying all the things everyone there had always wanted to say. Then I swept the contents of the front desk onto the floor and stormed out. Instead of leaving, I went around the side of the building to a payphone and called the radio station request line. In a fake southern accent, I said, "Hey y'all, I just told my cheap, no good, lying piece of human garbage boss to go to hell. Play me out with, take this job and shove it. And dedicate it to my former boss, Wes." The disc jockey had no idea what had just happened in the lobby, or that my Wes was the Wes, so he enthusiastically played my recorded dedication and added, "This one is for you, Wes. Choke on it, you sack of crap." The building had speakers inside and out constantly playing the radio feed, so I got to hear Wes get clowned by his own radio station before driving off into the sunset. A guy from my work years ago came in high and the boss figured it out. She brought him into the office to fire him and with a cop to escort him out. For his final stand, he came real close to her face and said, "In a world of darkness, where you carried the only light, I still wouldn't follow you." And left. I've seen, couldn't lead water downhill on a management survey before too, but that one is also great. I knew someone who worked in a really shitty call center. His boss never had time for anyone. When he went to tell his boss that he was leaving, the boss waved him out of the room as he was on a call. So he wrote "I quit" on a Postit note, stuck it on the boss's screen and just walked out. That is what forwards are for. I used to work for a telecommunications company. My mom was very sick over the last 3 months of her life, so I had to go home most weekends to see her. It's a 6-hour journey to get from where I worked to the town where I'm from. When her birthday came around, I requested a couple of days off that I had saved for this specific occasion. Yet, the days off were denied because we were approaching a busy time of year for sales. At this point, I hadn't mentioned what was happening at home, because well, I was always taught that you keep your work and personal lives separate. But I said it to my boss, who, at the time, I saw as a pretty compassionate person. She never took any issue when I got sick or was late for whatever reason. But when I told her, she just looked at me point blank and said, "I don't want to hear this." After that meeting, I went back to my desk and sat there for about 20 minutes, thinking of a solution. That solution was to get my things, and just leave. I said goodbye to my friends on my way out, flipped my boss off and just walked out. Went straight to my car and drove back to my hometown that night. It was the best decision I ever made. I got to spend all my time with my mom before she went. We even got to go on a vacation and spend one last week away together because I had the time to do so. I'll never, ever regret walking out that day. Not exactly hilarious, but I had a good chuckle to myself on that drive home. The look on my boss's face will never leave me. It was sweet. My boss was a dick, had me on a disciplinary for something that wasn't my fault, and had my bonus taken off me. So found a new job, Threw out 2,500 pounds worth of stock as technically the food hadn't been stored away correctly. Went above my boss and got head office's backing. Then handed my notice in, knowing that I'd fucked his bonus up too. Fuck that guy. I got this. Worked as a teen for McDonald's for a month or two during the winter in the 90s. We were understaffed and they usually had me working the deep sink and taking money at the drive-thru. One day I come in at 4 p.m. and the breakfast stuff is pilled to the ceiling at the sink because the day shift rolled out without taking care of it, as per usual. There was a snowstorm this particular day, and with the amount of dishes to do and the increasing frequency of running over and taking money from the window during the dinner rush, my hands were beginning to hurt, then going completely numb. I let the manager know this wasn't working out today and get blown off. Fuck it. I crawl straight the fuck out of the money window without anyone noticing, at least no one on the staff. I get in my car and drive to the parking lot across the street and watch that dinner rush drive-through line back up out of the lot and down the street. I was working for Arbys as a Christmas job while studying. After a while it was becoming too much as I had to stay and work until deliveries were unpacked. This meant that some days I was leaving for college at 8:30 am and not getting home until 1 am that night. One night it was a particularly large delivery and it was getting very late with no end in sight. I decided I'd had enough and told the supervisor I was finished, didn't want to do the job anymore and wanted to go home. He rejected this and said that I was going nowhere until the delivery was unpacked. I stood in front of him and repeated that I quit, therefore I don't care about the delivery. Completing my studies was more important to me than earning a bit of extra cash. He still said I was going nowhere and refused to unlock the door to let me out. Despite feeling I had a case for false imprisonment, I decided to take matters into my own hands. I ran out the fire escape door and down the street, never to return. I'll always remember the sound of the fire escape door making a big dung as it hit the metal railings, and I made my escape to freedom. Should have sued for imprisonment after recording it. Am I being detained? Someone at my previous workplace, a huge grocery store in a large mall, went to the PA system we used to issue message to the whole mall, and said something along the lines of "Dear customers, managers and coworkers, I fucking quit," and then proceeded to leave. Someone did this at the Walmart I worked at. Customer busybodies complained because of the curse word. The manager just asked, "What do you want me to do?" He already quit. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but there's really nothing I can do. As you already heard yourself, he fucking quit." I used to work for my father. It was probably the worst time of my life. He treated me like absolute shit, paid me very poorly, and made me work /0+ hours a week. I was young, just out of high school, and I complained about my predicament quite a lot. His response was always, "If you don't like it, there's the door." 6 months before I quit, he made me run his night shift, which meant 6 p.m.-6:30 a.m. Monday through Saturday. I was very unhappy about this, so I applied for another job. I got it, and went to my father's office with a list of demands. He responded with his usual reply, so I said, "All right, I've gotten a job offer somewhere else. Fuck you, I quit." The look on his face was priceless. He truly believed that because I had amazing job security that I'd be willing to put up with anything and that I'd stay there for my entire career. In one short, sweet instant, I proved to him that this was not the case, and he lost his most valuable employee. The icing on the cake was the fact that the job that I left him for is at the company that manufactures the very machinery and software he relies on in business. So anytime something goes wrong in his factory, he has to call me to fix it for him. I wrote a respectful letter thanking them for the opportunity and all they've taught me. The first letter of every sentence spelled out "fuck boss." Nobody noticed. Found James May's alt. Worked at Arbys. When I planned to quit, I typed up a formal letter of resignation and put it in an envelope. I walked in and handed my boss the envelope and she said, "Are you quitting?" I stammered no, as I walked backwards out the door and booked it out of there. I wasn't very good with confrontation back then. Worked as a teller at a bank for a few years. GM and supervisor were both kind of crappy in their own ways. My buddy there was also a teller who felt similarly and wanted to get out. We started applying to places and both got interviews at the same company. As luck would have it, we both got hired and got phone calls about 10 minutes apart. There was only one other teller aside from us, and when it got busy, supervisor usually had to jump in as well, and usually hated it. It felt like we were constantly short-staffed, and days when one person would call out sick or be on vacation would suck. Being down 2 people was the worst. Naturally, when we both got hired, it became a race to see who could turn in their 2 weeks' notice first. He printed his off and raced into GM's office, walking out with a big smile. GM calls me in and offers me full-time hours, after I had been requesting them for months. I jumped in saying, "Let me stop you right there. I'm also turning in my 2 weeks' notice." Remembering that look of disbelief will make me smile every time. A solid professional EFFU is just as enjoyable to me as going out with a bang. Wrote a normal letter of resignation before I got in the shower one morning. NBD. Got into the office and was straight ignored by management. Oh well, told you when my last day was. Fast forward 3 days, they pull me into a conference room to ask what it would take to keep me. I say nothing but don't want to ruin them, sole IT manager for a staff of 70, and would be willing to consult part-time. They liked that idea and said they'd be willing to pay me my current hourly as a consultant. I was prepared for this and told them that wasn't what I said. I said that I would consult and my consulting rate was $200/HR. They were flabbergasted and insulted. I was making about $18/HR salary. They thought it was insane, even though they'd pay a consulting firm $600/HR when I was on vacation. Needless to say, having planned to quit, it was no skin off my back and laughed about it. They didn't take kindly to me laughing about their anger and told me to pack my shit. I did so, got an extra 10 days vacation paid out of it. There was a UPS strike in the 90s and I was employed by them in high school as a sorter. Blockbuster Video at the time had this mail order deal where you'd get a VHS tape and bags of popcorn. Like a proto-Netflix thing, I guess. Anyway, all these boxes full of microwave popcorn and VHS tapes would slide down the belt and about half of the popcorn bags would explode or break. After about an hour there was popcorn dust all over. I asked my boss for a mask, and he said that they didn't have any. Some of the drivers walked by wearing masks, and I followed them and found a full cabinet full of masks. I confronted my boss, and he was like, "The masks are for drivers only." So I went back to the sorting area and just stopped working. I just stood there. The belts were backing up with these boxes of popcorn and they would burst in clouds of powdered popcorn butter would fill the air. I waited about 45 minutes before the belt shut off. I walked out through a haze of popcorn dust, with alarms blaring, people running everywhere trying to figure out what was going on. A lot of people didn't get their VHS tapes that week. Apparently the butter used on microwavable popcorn is dangerous if inhaled, so you actually dodged a bullet on this one. My boss was never in the office and wasn't even there for me to turn in so I took a video of me dancing on his desk and singing about how he's never there and sent it to his boss. I gave in my 2 weeks notice wearing socks and sandals. I had a part-time student job in college as music director in a small church. Everything was fine until they hired a new minister who preached annoying sermons in which he either condemned gay people or talk about the evils of birth control. I finally couldn't stand it anymore and told him, as I handed in my 2-week notice, that his 1-hour harangues reached the point where the ear can absorb only as much as the rear can endure. You absolute madman. I worked for a law firm doing research and analysis. I wrote a custom program, on my own time, that would automate editing down these huge lists we'd get from an outside vendor, boiling it down to only what we wanted. First, only my team used the code. By the time I left, over 150 people were using it. Sounds minimal, but it was actually a huge time saver. The program would boil down a list 100 pages long down to about 10 pages. A process we used to do manually a couple times a day. A layoff was announced. I was part of the outplacement, but the firm wanted to continue using my program. I asked if there would be compensation as it was coded on my own time, never paid for it, etc. I was told no, and besides, there's really nothing keeping us from still using it when you're gone. For the remainder of my time, 2 years, I would create patches whenever the format of the data changed. With my last patch, I put in code that would disable the program and erase key parts of the program 1 month after my last day. From what I understand from people still with the firm, on day X everyone came in, booted their machines, and the program was simply gone. Efficiency fell through the floor, delaying opening cases, billing clients, etc. I wanted 10K. They lost more than that in the first week without the program. My friend quit Taco Bell right in the middle of his shift by writing "fuck you, I'm out" on the floor with the big sour cream gun. Why would you ever leave a place that has a big sour cream gun? Some people don't know what they've got till it's gone. First job. Boss was a douche that liked to sexually harass the girls. Most girls were my friends. Got screamed at for something I didn't do. Proceeded to climb on roof. Dropped tro and pissed from roof onto his brand new Mustang. I hope you're reading this. Fuck you, Dave. I used to work in invoicing. My boss was a massive, micromanaging bitch, the type that has literally nothing better to do than nitpick because they, for some reason, think that that's how you properly manage. This went on for about 2 years before I'd had it. I took a big OL dump in the bathroom in our office, total of about 6 people that worked there. Precariously placed my boss's business card on the massive log, and then left it there in the toilet before going to her desk and quitting right then and there. She tried to come back at me with some spiteful shit, but I shut her down, telling her that she's a shit boss and she's the sole reason that I'm quitting this job. Best day ever, best dump ever too, now that I think of it. I wrote my 2-week notice on a condolence card that said, I can't comprehend the depth of your loss. Saw someone else do it online, ordered my own and held onto it until a better job offer came along. It went over well. When I was in high school, I worked for Best Buy as a cashier. I wasn't respected as an employee, and found a better opportunity at another company. So I went to work in my pajamas, on Black Friday, and my boss looked at me in shock and said, "You need to change, you can't come to work looking like this." I then told her I was leaving and only came to get my paycheck. I wish I can express the look on her face and everyone else that was working that day. It was such a feeling of relief. It also was funny showing up in my pajamas, haha. I worked overnights at a gas station through college. After being scheduled to work my 3rd Christmas in a row, on Christmas morning, I gave my boss a card that said I quit. Nice. I posted this not that long ago, but it fits here. Worked in a video store when there was such a thing. My co-worker showed up very high. He was also about 6'3" and 140 pounds, so he stood out in a crowd to begin with. Anyway, he came in for a 4-hour shift, stood in the middle of our bank of checkout registers, and just ate chips. Like, 6 bags of chips back to back, and he ate them slow, and savored the shit out of each bite. The whole time he had zero facial expression, think of the dull stare of a chewing dairy cow. After about 3 hours he calmly turns to me and says, "I can't do this anymore," gently sets down his bag of chips, and walks out the door. We never saw him in the store again. God, I miss the 90s. Not me, but a great story. One guy I worked with hired a mariachi band to follow him into our boss's office. Unfortunately for him, the boss was on vacation, so he ended up quitting over the phone and was so pissed he spent the $300 on the band. I can picture it. He's walking to his boss's office with the biggest shit-eating grin, while the band plays behind him. Just as he approaches the door, the secretary is about to stop him, but he silences her. Then he bursts through the door and... where the fuck is he? Slowly he realizes that his boss isn't there and his shit grin fades away into disappointment and he leaves the office with his head hung low while the mariachi band follows him. During my exit interview I told HR the real reason I was leaving was due to the quality of the office chairs. I said they were an eyesore, uncomfortable and made me ashamed to come to work and resulted in sub-par job satisfaction. 2 weeks later I was told by previous co-workers everyone got brand new, top-of-the-line office chairs. Your ex-co-workers must love you.